I love Sundays. Because every Sunday it means I know I get to see all of you. You truly are an amazing, incredible group of people who share. It is a delight to do life with you. Thank you for saying yes to doing life with us. And even for those of you who are online, again, if you ever get a chance to visit us here in Devonport, and if you've been watching us online, make a point to come and say hello and let us know. Hey, I wanted to, the sermon title this morning, as you're about to see up on the screen, is Getting the Update. Everyone say Getting the Update. It'll all make sense in a few minutes, but first of all, I want to download some information from the consult that we've just had with John Finkelty. Hey, who was here last weekend with Pastor John? How good was he? Hey, what an amazing preacher and speaker he is. And he brought something that was so timely to where we were at and what we're up to and where we're going. If you haven't already seen it, I would want to highly recommend that you watch it online. Hey, and I also wanted to take a moment. Chris Anderson, you just reminded me this morning why I resisted so long for putting all of our announcements on video. I forgot how funny you are. Everyone, can we give Chris Anderson a huge round of applause? Who thought you could make a census laughable? So we employ John Finkelty nearly every year as a church consultant. You know, it's one thing to have the vision of building a healthy, growing church that sees lives transformed, Christ glorified. It's another thing to actually measure it and go, well, is that actually happening? Is that working? And it's one of the reasons that we bring in a consultant. And after John's been here on a visit, myself and the board, we connect obviously with what John's brought to us. And we also have a team of people who we revisit the information from John every month to ensure that we are good stewards of that information, of those recommendations. It does cost us finance to have John. It is part of now how he makes ends meet, so to speak. And we're very thankful for, again, his willingness to come to Tassie to meet with us down here. But he leaves us with a report. And I want to let you know, the report was good. In fact, you can actually see a part of the report up here on the screen right now. This is what we get all to see. So as you can see, this is something John writes in most of his reports, and he says, there's 9 things that I love about your church. You certainly are building a strong, healthy, and growing church. So there's a lot to love. Aww. Turn your neighbour and say, hey, you helped make that happen. Come on, yeah, admit it, it was you. You helped that happen. Yeah, come on. So there's a few things up there that'll, again, while I'm talking, that you can take a moment to read. And he mentioned, so we get a report that has obviously the things that he loves about what we're doing, but also some recommendations about things to put in place. That, again, our team and our board will ensure to do. So much of it we're already doing, so much it's just to actually strengthen things that we are currently doing. But his experience and considerable work that he has done, his experience is advised in the midst of his wisdom of years of leading church, of now doing research about church health, is that, again, he was obviously blown away with what has happened here. He was blown away with the amount of work and what we've done in such a short period of time. But to the point where his advice has now been, because it took a lot of energy to do what we have done. It took a lot of work, a lot of effort, and a lot of love, sweat, blood, and tears, to do what we have done, again, in such a short period of time. And so his recommendations are to look at what you've done, so to speak, and now to reanalyze the way forward. And so some of those recommendations are along the lines of this. Stage 1 was getting into the building. And stage 1 is complete. We are in. We are obviously have found a way to make this place functional. There are just 2 things left to do, which is we're going to make still a few more sound adjustments around the all premises. And obviously we still have heating to install. But most of that we can get others in to do. So at the end of the day, we want to let you know we are now putting everything on hold. No more work. Everyone have a break. Everyone breathe. 1, 2, 3. So again, we are so thankful for all the work that have been done by a mountain of volunteers. But we want to let you know, we're going to at least let's all just stop. Let's now stop for a little while, enjoy the fruits of our labour. Let's enjoy what we've done as we get ready to prepare for stage 2. Stage 2, we'll put some going around the spaces and looking at what we still need to do, we'll create some plans that will more than likely will fill you in through the Vision Builders, which is in September. But in the meantime, we really want to take some time to, follow along the lines of, again, John's advice to us, which is the advice of the Word of God. If you were here last week, again, in John's Word, and as said, if you haven't already seen it, please take some time to watch it. It's on our YouTube or our Facebook page. You can see it in either of those two places. But one of the biblical patterns that he pointed out was from the book of Joshua. The book of Joshua, which he certainly talked about some very sensitive issues, which made us all kind of laugh for a bit. But the main point that he was bringing out was that it's so interesting to note that the Israelites, when they walk into the promised land, they see an amazing miracle take place. The Jordan River, which is in flood, banks up at a town way away, and they walk over a river that should be completely then boggy and whatever else. They walk across it on dry land. They literally witness a miracle. And now as soon as they get into the promised land, there are enemies everywhere. There are people to be conquered, so lands to be conquered. But it's really interesting that God doesn't send them straight on mission. I don't know about you, but if you've ever seen something, a miracle, you get a tad excited. I've got no comparisons to make without getting myself in trouble. No, I'll get myself in trouble. There is another moment in the Bible where an exciting moment happens, and you would think again that the moment it's happened, you would want to get on with it and just go and plunder the land, so to speak. It's the moment on Jesus' resurrection. For 3 years, he's been telling the disciples, boys, I'm going to die. I came to give my life. I came to be a sacrifice that all mankind might know that they can have forgiveness of sins. Not by the works of their hand, but just simply by believing that Jesus, he literally is the Son of God who came to be the sacrifice, that came to be the covering for our sin. Because it doesn't matter what you and I do, we will never be able to make up for it. What's sin? It's that thing that when you've done something wrong and you know, there's guilt, there's shame. And that thing, unfortunately, will separate us not only from one another, but separate us from a sense that God would be with me. God didn't want us to live like that. He wanted us to live in a way that we had a sense of peace and freedom with the God Almighty. He's actually on our side. I can't wait to preach the rest of this message where I'll show you more of that from the Word of God. And Christ came that we might be free. Everyone say free. Turn to your neighbour and say free. Freedom is, Christ came to bring freedom for us. Freedom from a mind at war. Freedom from a peace that never lands but always seems to always never be able to just stop. Christ came that we might even have that sense of our past no longer haunt us, but have a sense of peace. And then not just a sense of peace, but that we might even know that the God of the universe, the creator of all things, the one who in a word created, the one who in a word can change all things, the one who stopped a riverbed from flowing, and as the disciples saw, a guy who died on a cross, who then physically visited them 3 days later. Now, it's very hard to imagine, but if just let alone someone coming back from the dead, but let alone they were telling you they were coming back from the dead. Not only they were going to die, if you're the person physically in front of you back from the dead, think you'd be pretty excited. Do you think you'd be pretty excited? I can't even think. Again, there's nothing to compare it with because, again, it's just so not possible, not real. How do you compare it with anything that you can physically touch? Because it's not. It's just beyond imagination. But in their moment of beyond imagination, I don't know about you, but I'd want to go tell the whole world. I'd want to grab him by the arm and take him to school, take him to show and tell. Look, he's back. Take him down the main street, take him to wherever I could find him, and go. This guy who is dead, he's alive. But isn't the interesting thing? Jesus doesn't say yes to that. He doesn't even then go with them to that. He actually then tells them to stop and to pause. Stop and pause and get an update. Turn to your neighbour and say, get an update. The biblical pattern after a great victory is not necessarily then to go to the next victory, the next victory, the next win. There are too many stories, even in churches, of not taking moments to stop and pause and reflect on what God has just done. That we might indeed get the update for then what He wants to do next. It's the weirdest thing about success. Success can actually trick you into not actually pausing and remembering it was always God who was with me, who created the success. Nothing worse than falling in love with the blessing more than the blesser. Someone down the front just said, that'll preach. So I want to take a moment to look at what it means to us, the C3 Church family and tribe, for us to stop and pause and get an update. You know, with any of our phones or our computers and anything that operate, for them to keep working better and better and better, it requires us to get an update in them. And the most amazing thing I find about when you have to update your phone, you then can't do anything with it. It becomes useless. It's just a brick. Because it's pretty much, you can't, while it's updating, it's just meant to, you just have to sit it there. You can't do anything with it. And it's why, again, for a period of time, we're just choosing to stop. No more work's done. Let's just take a break. Let's enjoy what God has given us before we look at all the next things that need to be done around this space. Because the other thing that happens, I notice again, when you're supposed to do an update with your phone, there's also something else that you need to know. Not only no one does it become useless, but it actually already has to have a certain level of charge, or it needs to be plugged in. It needs to be plugged in while it does the update, because if the battery's too close to the burnout stage, if it's too close to the empty stage and you try to do the update and the update fails halfway through, you could stuff your phone. You could stuff your device. The update won't work. And for some of us, I don't know about you, but for some of us it feels like, oh my goodness, I think I'm nearly on empty. It's been a long, fun road to do this. But it was a hard road to do this. But I have a great sense that God wants to work with each and every one of us to do an update as He prepares us for what He's about to do next. Everyone say, next. You know, I'm just so excited about our next because I'm in a situation I've never been in personally. I've never been a pastor who owned a building. I've never been a leader who didn't have to worry about what are we going to do as far as that long-term home. Dan, we've got a home. We've got a building. And it's not anybody else's, it's ours. Tell your neighbor, it's ours. And it's not just any building either. It's not just another warehouse or something like that. It's the most beautiful piece of art on the planet. I went down to Hobart just recently. And there was, you know, the old church buildings, they tend to be open, so you can go in and just walk in and sit in there and whatever else, if you want a moment of meditation or whatever else. So I was in Hobart and I saw this building. You could do exactly that, and I walked in. It's probably older than our building. And it had stained glass windows as well. Not a patch on ours. They were ugly. Oh, I did. I just said that. It's online, hot dag. I won't identify which building it was. But the most amazing thing about this place that we've been gifted, it's its location, its beauty. And the thing which, so for this month, in part of our update, shall I say, is that I want to take some time to look at the book of Psalms. So between myself and the next people who will stand here in a pulpit, we're going to take some time to look at the book of Psalms and what it says about being refreshed. About what it means to connect with His presence in a way that updates our soul. That literally puts streams of living water in such a way that the battery is full. That it's not empty, but that it's ready for the update, can cope with the update. In fact, it's looking for the update. Because it knows with the update, it operates better than what it could do before. Ooh, I wonder what you'll be able to do post the update that you weren't doing before. All right, so if you've got, I wanted this morning, whatever kind of Bible that you have with you, I want you to look at it with me. So if that's on your phone or if you have a physical Bible, I know it's going to be on the screen, but I would really love it if you would actually take out whatever Bible it is that you have and physically look at the Word of God with me this morning. We're going to look at Psalm chapter 1. We're going to look at the very first Psalm of the book of Psalms and take a short period of time to look at that. Psalm chapter 1. We're going to be reading from verse 1 through to verse 3 and take some time to see how that can instruct us on how to do life, on how to get the update. Awesome. Say yeah when you've got it. Oh, come on. Good. Yep. Really, Carson? Have you really got it in front of you? Good, just checking. Brilliant. No, that's still not it. Now that's it. Well done. Good. Psalm chapter 1, verses 1 to 3. I'm going to just read. Oh, yeah, let's read. Psalm chapter 1 says, "Blessed, fortunate, prosperous, and favored by God is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, following their advice and example, nor stand in the path of sinners, nor sit down to rest in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law, his precepts and teachings, he or she habitually meditates day and night. And he or she will be like a tree firmly planted and fed by streams of water, which yields its fruit in its season. Its leaf does not wither, and in whatever he or she does, he or she prospers and comes to maturity." 3 simple verses that so much can teach us about an update. Psalm chapter 1, let's write from verse 1, says, "Blessed, fortunate, favored, prosperous by God is he or she who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, following their advice or example, nor stand in the path of sinners, nor sit down to rest in the seat of scoffers." This is really, really important, particularly if you are tired. If you are tired, it's so easy to sit and make wrong decisions about being in wrong places. One of the worst things about being tired is that the filters that would normally stop you from saying certain things, you tend to find they're now coming out. For anyone who's got children, you'll know exactly what this means. When the filters are in place, they are the love of your life. When you're tired and it's been the 15th night of no sleep and whatever else, it's amazing how your attitude changes. And you want to call them all sorts of things, and unfortunately sometimes you do. No one's ever done that, have they? No one online, you've never done that? No. You know, the difficulty is that even as believers, as followers of Christ, we can find ourselves, unfortunately, sitting with groups of people, and the next thing we know, the complaint begins to come out. Or someone else around you is bringing out the complaint, and it doesn't take long to join in. I worked in a small workshop for my first working life. And I worked for an employer who, let's just say, his greatest gift was finding a way out of a hole. Let me explain. I used to go into my workplace, particularly after about the second year. I was an apprentice, and nearly for at least once a week, if not every day, he would say this: "Oh, Brian, don't know how much longer we're going to stay open for. Market's changed, work is drying up, I don't know what we're going to do." So when I came in and then said, "Hey, I've got another job," he wondered why. And I just went, "Hello? Of course, surely." Isn't it interesting the atmospheres we create with our words? The things we can create and the actions are particularly of our complaint that can stir not just in us but in others. I then, after that work experience, worked for a larger place, in fact, a very large organisation, a state-based organisation. And the funny thing I discovered as a young man going into a very large organisation was this: everyone's got an opinion. And it's usually that they've got a better idea of how it should be done. And if you sit down long enough in the wrong places, Because when you first start a job, there's the nervousness to a certain degree. There's the nervousness of, am I doing what I'm meant to do? I'm not sure what the job entails, but I think I've got an idea and I just want to know exactly what it is to do. And you come in with a freshness. And of course, because they were good enough to even employ you in the first place, particularly when you're a young person, you just want to you just want to do a good job. You want to do the best that you can and ensure that your employer feels good about what it is that work that you're doing. But when, again, as I said, when you sit around in a larger organization, and particularly if there's some people who've been around for a long time in that place, doesn't take long, does it? And you sit in the wrong place. I learned, I don't know about anybody else, but it's in the workplace that I learned how to have a hot drink. I've met all sorts of different people who we share this story over and over again, but until I was 17, what was a hot drink? It was just like, why would you do that? Maybe a cup of Milo, hot, whatever else. But then when you got into the workplace and it was smoko, 10 o'clock, tools down everybody, we're off. And of course, if you then wanted to powwow and be part of all that group, you realised, I need a drink in my hand. No, thankfully I didn't work in places where it was a cigarette. But that's where I learned to grab, obviously there's a hot drink, a hot cup of tea, whatever else. Because it was then around that morning tea that you'd sit, you'd grab your cuppa, you'd all sit together, and then it would start. If I was the boss. If I was the employer, this is what I would do here. And then someone else would chip in. Yeah, I know what you mean by that. In fact, I reckon we should even go further than that. We should be doing this about the workplace. And all of a sudden, you start to hear these complaints. You start to hear these things from everybody else. And that enthusiasm that you first started to have, because the trouble with complaints is that more often than not, it has a slight element of truth. It has a slight moment you can kind of go like, oh yeah, I see what you mean. And the next thing you know, not only are you hearing it, but you're in agreement with it. And that enthusiastic attitude that you initially had when you came into the workplace is suddenly now not so enthusiastic. In fact, unfortunately here in Australia, we seem to have very much let's just say our kind of humour is very put the other person down based. We call it sarcasm. And unfortunately can lead into a position of even up the boss, so to speak. It's a shame that we get like that. Because when you've got to go, again, I was only talking about someone this morning. When you've got to go to work to be able to pay off the house and pay off whatever other toys it is that you've purchased along the way, to a certain degree you've become a slave to that workplace. You have to go. You don't have a choice. So what would you rather do? Would you rather go, or would you rather go, yeah, I can't wait to go to work? I was in the car just with Carson this week, driving along, and we were talking a little bit about work, and I just leaned over to him and he said, I'm one of the lucky ones because I get to love what I do. I feel so privileged. I get to love what I do and I obviously get paid for. Thank you, everybody. It truly is a privilege. And my heart would be in this moment of rest, be careful where you sit. In the moment of tiredness, be careful in the places that you sit. Because unfortunately, even in churches, we can find a way to bring out the complaint. It's not about our own church, it's suddenly about someone else's church. Hey, let's remember every one of our brothers and sisters we're going to spend eternity with. So let's not get into a habit of moaning and groaning about our brothers and sisters who are in other places. Let's pray for them. Let's love on them. Let's do whatever we can to help them because we're going to be spending eternity with them now. Eternity. So let's get used to them this side of eternity, not that side of eternity. When we get to heaven, there's not going to be Anglicans over there, Baptists over there. You see three guys? Yeah, come down the front. It's not going to be like that, okay? It's going to be all in. And particularly in our own house, we feel so privileged, Sharon and I. We feel so privileged here. And I'm only saying this for the sake of because again, I just want to ensure we cover all bases. But we know this is not how things work here. But again, let's make sure that in our tiredness and in our rest, that we're not finding ourselves sitting with complainers and scoffers. But let's ensure that we are those who say, no. You know, one of the interesting things that I found, particularly is in my Christian journey, and the more that I've become aware of the voice of the Spirit inside, the Holy Spirit inside us, And the more aware of that I've become over the years is that if I sit in one of those moments where I can hear scoffers around me, I can nearly feel like this unclean, this dirty thing come over me in a way like, I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out of this space. I can't sit around this. Why? Because again, that's not the work of Christ. That's not the work of God. If God would tell us, don't walk in the counsel of the wicked following their advice, don't stand in the path of sinners, don't sit down in the seat of scoffers, then that's not how God does things. When God sits down with people, God wants to go, you're incredible. All things are possible for you. With me, with you. Well, in fact, listen to this. Blessed is he or she, fortunate, prosperous, favored by God. Let me go through each one of those words. Fortunate. What is it about believers? It's just like things just seem to work for them. You met those kind of people, it's just like whatever they do, blessed. They're fortunate. Whatever they do, it's just like it seems to work. And then you've got this other thing, they're prosperous. They're always so generous. They're looking to pay for you when you go out for coffee. Is that right? They're always going to seem to have this nature that's not trying to be all about themselves, but it's actually about you. It's actually interested in who you are and what you're about. Blessed is the person who follows God. Blessed because they've got this prosperous nature to them. They're not selfish. They're not unloading. They're actually trying to work out, how can I give? I love this church because, again, I feel that over and over again amongst a range of different people. We saw that throughout the building process. People who are so willing to give with their time. Being down here day in, day out, painting walls, fixing this, pulling nails out of that, putting new nails in something else. It was amazing. Blessed, fortunate, prosperous, favored. Not only do things seem to work for those Christian people, things really do work for those Christian people. Because there's something about the favor of God on you, on me, on us. I want to tell you, things are going to work for you. I want you to know things are going to work for you because you are favored by God. Whatever, but that doesn't mean that you don't go through stuff to get to it working out. Because all things to work for good means something's not working. Turn to your neighbor and go, all things. It will work. It's going to work. And it will, because favored are you. Oh, I can't wait to Vision Builders. Vision Builders, our whole series is going to be about favored, the favor of God on us. Blessed is the person who doesn't sit in the seat of mockers, but blessed is the person who's like this. Psalm 1 verse 2, but he or she, their delight is in the law of the Lord, and on their law, can I have the musicians come forward please? And on the law, his precepts and teachings, he or she habitually meditates day and night. I've got so many lines right now, and so many of them are awkward. To delight in God's boundaries. When's the last time you actually recognized his boundaries and just went, I'm actually so thankful for that boundary? Let me say this as a parent, what I'm about to say. I'm so thankful that God actually said that his instruction is, don't have sex until you get married. It's a biblical instruction. And I'm so glad as a parent to watch my children growing up and watching them not have a lifestyle of broken hearts here, there, and everywhere because of allowing that habit to be theirs. But of children who kept themselves for the kingdom of God. The day of Zoe and Jacob getting married was just of the greatest delight. Because we knew that they'd kept themselves for each other. But not only that, there was no history, therefore, no baggage that they were walking into this marriage with from those relationships. Because they'd kept themselves. When's the last time you delighted in the fact that God says, let sex be saved for marriage? Delight yourself. Enjoy the fact that he says boundaries. Enjoy the fact that there are boundaries from the Word of God. They're not to actually restrict your life. They're actually protect your life. Delight yourself in the law of the Lord. Delight yourself in his ways. Delight yourself in giving. Oh, it's so good to... I've met people who are tight about everything. I've met people who are selfish. And they're not fun to be around. Because it's like an atmosphere on them. But when you get around people who are generous, generous in conversation, generous in nature. We had the good fortune to take out a handful of people who were here who had given over and above in the sense of the way that they did stuff here in the building. Anita, Amy, Tony, and a couple of others. And we took them out for lunch, and just to sit together and hear the stories, because of the stories of generous people. Tony in particular, you were so much fun, Tony. In fact, Tracy, there are some things in that conversation that you and I are definitely going to need to talk about afterwards. Because he was just, you could hear the generosity of heart, the generosity of conversation, the generosity of, I don't actually have to hide who I am. When's the last time you delighted yourself in His ways? Oh, God, I'm so thankful for His word. I'm so thankful for His words. In fact, of all things that I would love for you to get lost in regards to doing the update over this month, is that whatever the word life looks like for you, in other words, the reading of the Bible, the reading of the word. I know there's a devotional plan that comes along with being part of your Connect group. If you're not in that and you would like to be, please see the service desk. Go to there at the end of the service and they will help you get onto that. But maybe of all things that you get lost in over these next few weeks, get lost in the Word of God. Let it be the delight that when you sit still and go like, what am I going to do now? That you would go like, I'm going to pick up my Bible. I'm going to pick up the Word of God. Because I find that when I pick up the Word of God, it breathes life. It doesn't breathe restrictions. It actually breathes life. This is really wrong, so don't do it. But I was nearly going to say, turn to your neighbour and just breathe on them. But that would not be okay. But that is the work of God, is to breathe life into us. It's to breathe into you and I. That again, that the God's ways are not restrictive, but they actually feel so open because it protects us from dangers and from emotional travesties and all those sort of things, because we understood we did it God's way. Oh God, I'm so thankful for His word. I'm so thankful for His ways. Because the thing about His ways is it then builds confidence for your future. Oh, the person whose heart is compromised. Oh, the person whose conscience is always wrestling with their actions. Because they can't find peace or confidence about what they do next. Because they're not sure about who they are, let alone where God is with them. But blessed. Blessed is the person who took the word of God and said, let it be the lamp unto my feet, the light unto my path. I will walk by it. That then said yes to Jesus Christ, understanding that He brings the forgiveness of my wrongs, my sins, and my past. Makes me clean in a way that is whiter than snow. That I can stand before God in a way that I can boldly, the book of Hebrews declares, into His presence. To walk boldly in His presence in such a way without fear, but even knowing He welcomes me. When I go around to my dad's house, he never says, what are you doing here? When I move towards the fridge, he does a little bit. But it's never that. When I walk into my parents' home, it's like it's so good to see you. And I appreciate we don't all come from the same home lives. I appreciate our family structures are different. But I know the Father, our good, good Father, who did everything He could through His Son Christ to make a way that we can boldly come to His presence.
Thank you for joining us online today. We hope that you've enjoyed the experience we call C3.
We believe that the power of belonging has never been more important than it is right now in this current season that we find ourselves. And we would love to find a way to help you feel like that you belong, whether it's here online or even by joining us at our physical location here in Devonport. So if you'd like to know more about how you could do that, jump online and visit us at c3churchdevonport.com /online.
Or you could also just fill out online. There'll be a tab that says I'm new here with your details, and someone will be in touch with you in the next couple of days. Or you can check us out on Facebook and connect with us through there. Thanks so much for joining with us today.
Thank you. God bless you.